Jam nitty gritty, you're listening to the boy from the big bad city. This is Jam High. This is Jam High.
Welcome to Who's Hot with your host, Wil Chung.
Hello, and thank you for downloading the latest UKOCR Who's Hot podcast. My name is Wil Chung, and I am here to talk about the Nuts Challenge, the race that's just happened this weekend. As always, I am here with my two OCR Elite races and co-hosts. First of all, we got Becky and Neal. Hi, Becky. How are you doing?
Hey, Will. Yes, very good. Thank you. How are you?
Good. Yes, good. Thank you. And of course, we've got Chris Shipley, who's just come off his other podcast, Accountability Corner. So you're doing some double time. Chris, how are you doing?
Yeah, how's it going, everyone? Yeah, I've been spending way too much time in front of the computer, getting blurry eyes.
You love it. You love it.
Welcome to my life.
Yeah, I don't know how you do it.
My eyes aren't happy about it. Living in denial.
Always. So we're here, we're talking about the Nuts Challenge. It just happened last weekend. It's the penultimate race of the UK OCR series. It's race 6 of 7. We'll be coming up to race 7. So we're talking about the Nuts Challenge, which happened last weekend. It's the penultimate race in the UK OCR series, race 6 of 7. We're so close, guys. We're so close. Quickly, let's go straight into it. Chris, how did the men's go? How did your race go?
Well, my race went well. The most important thing of the day was that I beat Darren Martin, which was...
Woo! What's the score now? What's the tally?
I think I'm 1 up. I don't know what I think it's like 4-3 or 5-4. One of the two. Whatever it is, I'm in the lead.
You're still beating Darren Martin. That's the most important
that's the
thing
main
to take
thing.
out.
But
Right.
Could be a draw at the end of the season.
I hope not.
Serious.
We hope not.
Well,
but,
I guess you got British champs and you've got worlds to come, so you know that it cannot be a draw from there.
Nah, we'll put it down to arm wrestles if it ends up being a draw.
Oh, yeah.
Because he knows I'll win at that.
I thought you looked like you got skinny arms, Chris.
Huh? What?
It's motivation.
Whose band have you been jumping on, Will? Who you been talking to?
Hey, if you ever look at the Accountability Corner social post, I'm always banging your drum, Chris.
I know. You're my only fan.
I think I was the only one to vote for you for the Nuts Challenge, actually.
Yeah, I got my girlfriend to vote for me.
To be fair, all the smart money was on Mo. But anyway, let's forget all that. Let's quickly let's talk about those. So let me talk about the results first. Of course, we had first place Mo. Second place, we've got James Burton. 3 seconds between those two, so 49.50 for Mo, 49.53 for James. Chris, you came third place, not that far behind either, 50.16, so really close and tight for the first 3. And then if I just quickly look here, so we've then got Darren Martin, Dan Titcombe, Finley Greenleaf, Dasa Scanella, Ramuna Swickis, Eddie Lambert, Jason Molan, Matt Roberts, Zach Harbour, and Leo Brimacombe. So again, it's just a who's who of UK OCR at this moment in time. But talk about the men's race, Chris.
Yeah, I mean, it was a stacked field. I mean, it was probably one of the most stacked 7K races that has been at Nuts for a long, long time. It started off really, really well, actually. So started off going over like some hay bales and things, which I fell over 2 of them. So it put me right at the back of the pack, which was a bit of a pain in the ass. So I had to just try and keep my cool to try and get up to the technical section where I thought, I was going to be able to make some sort of impact in the race. And sort of got up to that bit and managed to get into a lead with Mo. Dan had a bit of a trouble on one of the obstacles because he touched the log. So he had to get a penalty on that, which isn't really that good because, it's not very good. But I've had that sort of situation before, so I know it's really, really bad. I'm dribbling on a bit now.
Race brain just kind of gets in the way, doesn't it? Like when you think you know what you're meant to do, but it's hard to kind of execute it sometimes when you step on the bit that you're not supposed to, or step in front of it, or take your feet off the ground and then go back, and then you've already had your go, or something like that. So yeah, it's hard to kind of execute it in the moment sometimes.
It's like I've got podcast brain at the moment, trying to remember what's going on in the race. So so obviously Dan had that bit. You
guys did all right last week without us, so you just went on and on.
I was more awake then because it's past my bedtime at the moment. But so after the technical section, got to pass the piccolo rig, which was really, really good. Passed all the sort of low obstacles. Go on, Becky.
So what was the order at that point in the race?
So as you came into the technical section, you had the first obstacle, which was a tire drag, like they did at the 3K event. Then you went into the technical section where you had the normal things: under the barbed wire crawl, over the cargo net, over Monty. That's like a really, really good obstacle. And I think a lot of people struggle with that a little bit because it's quite a difficult one to get over and get your breathing right. Through the tires, and then you ran round through the newly wall climbing bit. So they've redone a lot of the obstacles at Nuts now. And what was the climbing hold thing over the net is now just like a traverse on some wood, but they've redone that. So it's all brand new.
That was fast, wasn't it?
Yeah, it was very fast. Very,
Off
very
the
fast.
water. Yeah.
Yeah, it wasn't as technical as it used to be on that section, but it definitely made you like think and put a bit of speed into it. And then you came along onto the ladder monkey bars, which were really, really good. Yeah, you had to hit the bell there. Some people...
I didn't even see the bell. I just went all the way to the end.
Yeah, so I think some people hit the bell, came off there.
Yeah.
Obviously, that is the end of the obstacle, but it's actually quicker to probably just go right to the end of the monkey bars. And then what did we do? We went round the corner. Valkyrie. Did Valkyrie, up Valkyrie, low rig. That was pretty fast. I don't know how many people failed it or what it was like on that sort of section. But then after that, this is when I was starting to sort of take people out and like overtake a lot of people. Then we went over that little wall climbing container, then back into the balance beams. And then Nuts has redone this section. So they've got rid of the Weaver and they've replaced it with like what do they call that at Spartan?
A wall?
Yeah, but it's like a climbing. No, not that one. It's I can't remember, but it's like an inverted wall with rock climbing holes along the side that you traverse.
Oh, Olympus, yeah.
The Olympus, thank you, Becky.
Yeah.
You get on podcast brain as well.
Yeah.
So that's a new obstacle. They've redone that section, which is really, really nice. And that was the first time I've ever been over it. So that was really good. And then did we go right onto the mid-rig? We did.
Yeah, through that little bridge onto the mid-rig. Yeah,
through the little bridge onto the mid-rig. And then where did we go?
Then the fireman's pole angled into the rings.
That's it. And then we had that next technical obstacle.
Short low rig.
And that's where they put the Taurus rig, basically. So you had the wheels, the bell, and then you came onto the new sort of Taurus rig, which had a combination of balls, a few UFOs, a rope in the middle, and then a couple more balls, and then the bell. And then after that, it was a nice little running section through the woods, into like over the unders or over unders, over unders.
Yeah, maybe
whatever.
over the unders or under the overs.
Whatever people sort of decided to do on that.
Yeah.
And then up to the Piccolo rig, which was the bullet lane obstacle. And
make or break.
It was make or break. Now, Dan chose to do because Dan was leading the race at this point. So Dan chose to do the bullet lane. Unfortunately, he scraped the ground with that, which put him into doing the other one. And then by that point, I caught up with Mo, who was in second place. He entered the obstacle before me, and we exited the obstacle together. And then we had a bit of a run through the rest of the Nuts course that everyone sort of really knows, through the rivers and the woods and things. We sort of kept that sort of position all the way, and then Dan started to come back up from the rear, just towards the commando crawl. Sort of me, Mo, and Dan was on that, and then we got to that running section, and then those two just left me for dust. Really, they put down the hammer. You know, those guys are such more proficient runners than I am. And then they sort of held it on until we got to the hill section. I can't even remember what they're called. Hamburger Hill. And then for some reason, then out of nowhere, the Prime Minister comes up, James Burton. He comes up from the rear, overtakes me. I go to James. I said to him, you got all your bands? And he just ignored me. So I'm like, oh no. So I'm like, yeah, but he didn't do. He played a very tactical race, and I've raced James at that course, and he's really good at that Hamburger Hill section. And
you even said that on the preview that James is good at nuts.
Yeah, especially that bit.
The last bit with the cargo nets and the logs and everything.
Yeah, I mean, I'm pretty quick through that as well, but I think on Hamburger Hill he can put in a bit of a surge, and he definitely burnt a match there. But he had a few extra in his pocket because he did it a bit tactically on the piccolo rig and went for the safety lane and then did the thing so he wouldn't blow out. But then he didn't have that extra time penalty of going from one obstacle to like one section of the bullet lane, failing it, and then doing the other bit. So he gained a bit of time with that and then just ran his race to that section. And then he put in a real big surge at the end to try and catch Mo. Mo, I don't know if anyone's seen Mo's video, but he had a real bad accident. You know, on the poles that you jump over before that last tunnel, the ones that you can skip.
Yes.
After the last nets, he jumped 1, he jumped 2, he jumped 3, and then as he jumped the third one, he stacked it, smashed his chest right into the logs. Yeah, it's pretty bad. Somehow, like, fair play to Mo, he like managed to like carry on with the race. He said he was running on just pure adrenaline at that time. Managed to race, but James was closing the gap. James closed that gap like no
and you
end.
have to like swim and like breathe hard at that point, and it's not like natural running. It's like throwing your body across those donuts. And
well, it took a toll on him because he puked up after the finish. Yeah, so as soon as he finished, he puked once, and then he had to go off and puke again because like after the impact from that, and obviously trying to hold on to that lead. But I mean, it was a really, really good race. I mean, I said on my Instagram post that it shows everyone's sort of attribute points because everyone has like points in that race where it was coming back and forth, and I'm sure it was the same on the ladies race as well, because Nuts sort of caters for everything. It makes the obstacle race really, really good because it's just, you know, back and forth all the time, and it's really difficult for like the really fast runners to put down their pace that they're used to like running, especially with like the in and out of ditches and in and out of like mud and through the tunnels and things. So that was a really good race.
Cool.
Wow. And it all goes silent because like, wow. Amazing. So, Becky, let's go over to you because you also came third. So you know we're a pretty good winning team. If I actually pulled my finger out and started doing a few races as well. But let me go through the females' results first, and then we'll talk about the race. So Federica Di Caria first place, Louise Ferriman in second, Becky Neal third, JC Lloyd, Karen McQuarrie, Charlotte Dehaney, Tamar Barkley, Laura Haywood, Libby Joyce, Cheryl Lee Pace, Elizabeth Brimacombe, Cheryl Beach, and Carney Casillas, Emma Kirkwood, Emily Bonney, Helen Marie Gilmore, Julie Boxwood, Charlotte Jewell, Megan Tranter, Kimberly Harvey, and Erica Paul, Georgina Bishop, and Wendy Brothers. So again, it's another who's who, and I think this is all probably down to it being now everyone chasing the points or chasing more points now, ready for the British Championships. But if I just quickly go back here where I've gone, so Federica came in first with 1 minute 3, 1 hour 3 minutes 4 seconds. Louise Ferriman 1 hour 5 minutes 18 seconds. Our very own Becky Neal 1 hour 6 minutes 4 seconds. Becky, the race, how did it go for you? How did it go for everyone really?
Yeah, I mean, I'd agree. It was a really exciting race. I think we had about 24, 25 on the start line, and it felt busy. Like it felt like you looked around, you're like, oh, wow, okay, here we go. Like this is a proper event, you know, and it's fast, it's technical, there's different things. Like it felt like it was going to be like you're going to have to work for it, and there was no room for error. So it was pretty exciting. Sadly, Pip had to go because of the delay, and it would have been really nice to see her do that race. So I felt pretty sad for her. Thought it must have been frustrating. But next time, Pip going to just be more ready for Worlds. Yeah. So we did actually start separate to the men. We kind of requested that because we thought, I don't want all the men getting in the way of kicking us in the face going over the hay. Like Chris just said, it took him quite a while to get over it, and I just thought it would have been unfair, you know, if some person chooses a good line and there's only 2 men in the way rather than someone else that chooses a bad line and gets 15 in the way. So it's not good when people who aren't in your race influence your race, you know, like spectators or other categories. So that was hopefully a good idea, except probably didn't wait long enough, but we'd already waited a long time at the start line, so we weren't keen to wait for another 10 minutes or whatever. So we started once kind of the last men had gone over the hay bale. So that meant that I actually overtook the first men before we got out the field. So we'd gone about 200 meters before we were overtaken the back markers, which meant even from the first barriers, you know, getting over the fences and stuff and the gates on the way out, we were already getting stuck. So that was a little frustrating, like we said, and then it got even more frustrating unfortunately, in the technical section. That was pretty early on in the race and quite condensed as well. It wasn't really spread out, similar to what we had at Nuclear, I suppose. But that's like a limiting factor of venues and where things are and how logistics have to happen. So like, it was really good to have all of that stuff in it. It just was very early on in the race, whilst there was kind of too many people around, I suppose. And I think that affected pretty much all of the women, not just the ones at the front. So, you know, it's hard to kind of quantify that. Like, me and Fede were waiting for like 40 seconds to start the low rig, the half 40 seconds that we'd run hard for. But like that, there's bits and pieces of that go in around the race, so you can't really like compare. It's just, it is what it is. So we all kind of just tried to find the right spot and do what we could and execute it with that pressure. And I think it's also good practice for like the World Championships and stuff, because there's always going to be more and more people around at those big events, and things out of your control. So it's just kind of how you deal with it. Anyway, so we went off pretty fast, overtook some men. I always managed to find some like space at the start, either Spartan and other races. So I actually came off the hay bale first, and I think Josu caught me up next, when by the time we got to just before we got to the tire drag. And then Josu came off that first, and me and Fede came off at about the same time. We were doing like the crawl together, and the Monty did Valkyrie together, and Josie was on the low rig, and then we started the low rig after a little bit, and then Lou joined us. I think there was a couple of penalties that some people got there, so it started to kind of become a bit more like we didn't know who was where and how many bands people had, and it was getting kind of like, I don't know if exciting is the right word, but it felt a bit hectic. It felt intense. And like, there were people like shouting and obviously trying to get every second and like stepping in front to get on the lanes and stuff. Dave graciously let me go on the spinning rig first, so it was nice. But yeah, it was hectic, I'd say. So it was a good practice at like, yeah, executing the rig. Like, it felt slippy even on some of the bits, and you really had to concentrate. Like, those bells were high up and you just had to do whatever you could to hit them just wherever they were. So I kind of executed all those fine, like didn't lose any bands or anything on that section. Fede caught me up on the, like, I find I'm very slow at going up that tire tube.
Yeah.
I think I just don't like there's all stuff falling on my head, and I get a bit like, a bit rubbish.
Yeah. It's not nice. It's not a nice obstacle, really, but it's good. It makes you, especially coming off after that sort of Torres rig, and then you go into it. It's either a place you can catch a bit of breath, or it just kind of takes a bit of breath away.
And I think Fede and Lou kind of caught me up a bit. They were closing down on me, and Fede overtook me, and Lou overtook me a little bit, or was catching up with me. Then I made some space again on the running bit. So when we got to the Piccolo rig, Josie was in the lead, but she'd lost a band. I think she tried the bullet lane and came off, and so was doing the repeat lane. And then Fede had started the bullet lane and was just doing it very carefully, very cautiously, and it paid off. So she was doing the figure of four technique towards the end, and like really good execution of her skill there, which was really nice to see all that training paying off. Then I started it, and I kind of went for it quite quickly because I was like, I can catch here and make some time. And then I tried to muscle through it rather than use the skills, and it didn't work. And I didn't catch the T-bar, and I touched the floor, so I got off and got straight back on again, thanks to the men that I got in front of. And like quick slothed along the rope. But in that time, Lou had also done the same as Fede. She did a really good job. Like, her low rig skills are excellent, and she executed the bullet lane as well. So that meant that Josie had been on the penalty lap on the sort of the running bit. Fede and Lou had got the shortcut, and then I completed the second easy rig very quickly. But then it was still like, I was still in there for 2 minutes 20 or something. It took me to do that and then do the run bit. So I think you lost more time doing that than you did at the penalty loop at the end. And also then you lose touch with the race. So I think it was actually quite different having a penalty at the end versus a penalty in the middle. Like, if I just lost a band and then done that one at the end, I could have run with Lou and Fede. And then also Shy came along, and she got the bullet lane. So she came off the bullet lane at the same time as I came off the penalty laps. And I was like, oh, damn, I'm in fifth now. Like, there's Josie, Fede, Lou, Shy, and me. I have to like really work, and there's no more technical obstacles. Like, it's just running now. But I think Shy was the first time she's raced there in terms of doing like the long loop, so she wasn't so familiar. So she was kind of cautiously getting into the water, like didn't know how deep it is. You don't want to be careful jumping into some of those water bits. So I was kind of following her, and then she pulled away from me on that tire carry. Just a bit of a wimp on that. And then I overtook her and started to run away a bit on the running section. I think that Josie was running pretty hard, and Freddie was working, and I think Lou was trying to keep up, and Lou really pushed herself on her running, which was really good, and she managed to like keep close to the front. And then because Josie had 2, I think, penalty laps to do in the water bit at the end, I didn't really realize, and I know that Lou had one as well from the first low rig. She had to do one at the end, and she did tell me that in the race. And I still thought I need to run hard to because there's 2 people ahead of me who are going to do penalties at the end, and I've done my penalty, although it did feel like it was long and I was nowhere near and I was out of touch with the race, but I knew like there still could be some chance. So I was like, oh, I still have to try and run a bit hard, but also don't hurt yourself. And I was like, oh, I don't know. Anyway, it's running my own. Came in, and then I was going through the water section, and I thought I couldn't see anyone. Thought the race was kind of done. I thought Freddie finish, and that was exciting. I think she pushed herself. It was really good to see like everything come together for her. And then Lou had finished, and then turns out that Josie was behind me doing her last penalty, and I managed to get in front of her on the water section while she was still doing that. But I didn't notice until I literally came out the water, just glanced over my shoulder and saw a ponytail. I was like, oh no, go, because she'd obviously been pushing to try and stay on the podium. And she's really good. She's good at swimming and stuff as well, good at water stuff. So she was very fast through the water section, I think. But doing it twice or 2.5 times by the time you've got the last lap as well, then it's got to be draining. My quads hurt from going through the water and going up those hills and stuff. Slide was fun though. Slide's nice. So yeah, a little sprint to the line, and then Josie finished behind me. She's working pretty hard. And then what was really exciting was seeing Shy, and then Karen had caught up to Shy, because I think Shy didn't want to push it through the water. And then Karen's really excellent in water as well. She does a lot of open swimming too. She caught me up at the end of nuts in winter. So she knows she's got that kind of good nut strength towards the end of the race. And they literally sprinted top speed, neck and neck through the tape kind of thing. And wow. just suddenly charging at you. And I think Karen got it. But Shy must have been ahead for most of the race, and she got all the obstacles. So that's a really impressive run from her, and a bit more kind of familiarity on the course, and a bit more kind of commitment to the water sections might have made a difference in a place for Shy there, but still a really good race for her. So I mean, top 5 was pretty damn exciting, from 5 to 6, with actually quite a few changing positions. Several of us had led the race. So I feel like the results don't necessarily tell you all that, which is nice to talk about now. So yeah, well done everyone for all the different good bits that you had throughout the race.
Yeah, such a battle, isn't it? No,
yeah,
it's just such a battle. No, you don't realize it until you actually race it against other people, because it doesn't matter how weak or strong you are at certain things. It really brings out. Really, if you've got something that you're good at, nuts will bring that out, and it'll give you a position, even if it's not the position you want. It will give you a position that's reflective of your strengths.
Yeah, ultimately, the best obstacle courses races won. The people who could complete the hardest obstacles and run the fastest won, and that's how we want it to be. Freddie was the fastest runner who did all the obstacles. Lou did all the obstacles, or did the bullet lane, which I couldn't do, so she placed it in front of me. And then I didn't get the bullet lane, so I was next. And then Josie got 2 penalties, so she was next. And then so it kind of made sense, it worked out nicely, I think.
It's amazing too.
Oh, I just wish I held on.
It's amazing too, because as you was going through that and I was looking at the results, I was kind of thinking, and I'll say this, but you'll see why I'm kind of also hesitating. Freddie's come through this year and really taken a big step up. But then I can say that about Lou's taking a big step up. Karen definitely taking a step up. Shy, I don't think we really talked about Shy at all last year. And so isn't it absolutely fantastic, especially in the female section, that everyone has actually taken a step up, which is why I was hesitant to say it. But it has moved a giant leap forward in terms of the competitiveness of the whole group from what we were talking about last year, definitely.
I agree in that. Like, I feel like I haven't moved forward as much as all those other people have, and it's like it's exciting and it's scary. Like, you can't predict who's going to win, really. Like, especially when it's so challenging and like nuts in every single way. So, yeah, I don't know who are the top three within OCR right now. I don't know.
Exactly.
It's difficult. The women's
Yeah.
like, even after the scores are coming for the whole series, it's still hard to determine who's going to take top spot.
I know. We've been doing some sums, but I thought maybe we'll save that for the preview for British.
I was trying to wait because I was like, I can't do no sums, so I can't work it out.
It is very close, and a lot of different scenarios could happen, which would have big impact on the results. So I think we'll save that for the next one.
Yeah, and fortunately, I've got two 14-hour flights in between, which I might actually start to do some maths myself ready for that preview. But yeah, we'll talk about where we are in a little while. Some really good feedback, and we'll go to that from the members of British Obstacle Sports on Facebook. But there's a couple of things I want to talk about, and Becky, you did kind of mention it, but you knew we was going to talk about it. But what happened at the start of the race? The waiting. Do we know what happened then? Why was it so long?
Yeah, so I think it will end up being maybe an hour and 10 minutes. I did wake up at 4:20, so it could have been fun. Yes, I think it was a combination of things. Need to get marshals in the right positions, and I do think that's important. Like, we would be complaining more if there weren't people in the right places and the race became unfair.
Absolutely.
I think so.
And
I think waiting is better than that. Yeah, and unsafe. And I think there was also maybe a problem with a tree coming down. I know people were saying, "Oh, you can jump over a tree." You can't jump over like all the leafy bits of a tree.
Yeah, and it may have knocked some
Risk
other
assessments.
tree as well, and made some other parts of the
Unsafe.
surrounding area unsafe. Yeah, it's quite dodgy.
So it's not that simple, you know. So whatever it is, you know, we had some information. I guess people only have the information that they have, and it's difficult to kind of share that, and no one can predict the future. So yeah, we just had to kind of deal with that in terms of our warm up and food. I think maybe John went to get a bacon bat. It's not necessarily how I would deal with it, but
so funny. I love it so much. He came back with this bacon. He's like, "Oh, I need to eat.
Every hour.
I mean, I'm kind of middle of the pack runner, but I can't eat like 2 hours before a race. Never mind to actually then put in a hard 7K and have a bacon beforehand.
He's a different breed. He's a ledge.
I think people often underestimate him.
Yeah.
But Ferg was on hand with some boom, so I had a little bit of extra boom on the start line. Tried to get the music pumping, did some dancing, but no one really was joining me anyway.
So for you guys, almost not knowing how long the wait was, what were you doing? How were you trying to stay warm, or you know, kind of keep within zone, or did you just let it go and then try and get back into the zone? You know, maybe I'm sure they would have said, "Oh, okay, we're going to get going in 10 minutes." But how did you kind of keep prepared?
It's a bit frustrating, really, especially after we had that, because managed to get a really good warm up in before the first race, and then obviously you cool down, and then you've got to try and sort of pick your time to try and get your heart rate back up again, especially with a 7K race. It's not easy to be in the right.
For the hay bales.
That's right. It's really difficult, but luckily it wasn't cold or anything. So
yeah.
I mean, when we had a bit of a delay up in Beach Ballistics, it was peeing down with rain. So at least we didn't have that. So at least it was, you know, it was good to stay warm, and then just towards when we thought the start was going to be, just get some strides in. But luckily everyone's in the same boat, so it's not like it's like it's unfair to everyone else, because everyone else has got to do it. The weather was fortunate.
There was something about bells on the rigs as well, and maybe either people hitting them too hard, so those getting wrapped up harder for other people to get. What was going on there?
Yeah, so I mean, at least 2 of the obstacles that I did, the bells were wrapped up, so they were therefore higher. But that's because, you know, these are obstacles where you have to swing to hit the bell, so you're naturally moving through the air, and that means you're hitting it harder and momentum. So people weren't like doing it intentionally. That's just how you had to hit the bell because of the style of the obstacle. And that's so high up that the marshals or technical officials can't reach that to get it back down, and that's that would take a lot of time and effort doing that all the time. Maybe the bells could have just always been that high, I don't know, like stayed at the top and been at the top for everyone, but then people would hit it and it'd come back down again. So, it's hard to control that. That's why I guess some other times they use the tape on the floor instead of the bells, which has been used on that swinging rig, which was one of the culprit, I think, rigs. Well, that's one where I had to do an extra. So I spotted it, I'm always looking for the bell as you approach the end of the obstacle. Saw that was too high, said it out loud, but obviously nothing was going to change. I had to just deal with that. So I just did an extra swing, swung further forwards, hit the bell, did the same on at least one other obstacle. And that's what happens at Euros, that's what happens at Worlds. I've had that at Euros before. And that's when you have single attempt at things. We had single attempt at some of these obstacles. There was a little bit of miscommunication, I think, over that single attempt versus multiple attempt. It was a bit confusing to remember which ones were which. So I think we could, we talked on the technical committee about how we can improve that. Like there was a rule book, but it didn't really match what we have had with other ones, and having that information at the obstacle and stuff like that. So we've got things to work on there and some plans in place. But yeah, the bells were high, but still managed to hit them. Just gotta look where you want to go. But yeah, it's frustrating when it's not the same for everybody, or you're not expecting it.
Yeah.
And the other bit of controversy before we go back to the positive feedback: fast women, slower men.
Yeah, I mean, I think you need like 10 minutes between.
I've got a theory for this. I've been thinking about it.
Tell me.
Go on.
I think we should have a seeded system of like about 15 people, and then those first 15 go, and then the 15 women go, and then it would like reduce back to like 15 next men, 15 next women, and then so forth, or something like that. And that should do it, because you'll be catching up with the faster people, etc., etc., etc.
And do you mean like volunteer self-seeding, or do you mean based on race history?
Based on race history, yeah.
UK ranking, because a lot of the races aren't similar enough. Like, would you take the same top 10 if you were looking at Spartan race versus Nuts 7K?
I just come up with a theory, Becky. I haven't got the answers.
Well, we do talk about these things in the technical committee, and we also talk about ways to create ranking systems.
Yeah.
So it's all brewing.
It's all there, but yeah.
Then you just have to get the race directors on board and then actually execute it.
Yeah, but I mean,
fairly. With the timing tips and everything else.
Just think if you're the racer, or if you're the racer like 16th place, 17th place, you might kick off going, look, I'm quicker than this. I'm quicker than her in 15th place, and all this time.
If it's down to a time-based, like your time at the end, then your time should.
Nobody wants to win on chip time. You want a race to the line, right? Right.
I thought I had the answer.
It's a good suggestion. I'm just thinking it through out loud.
I'll pop it in the suggestions box.
Thank you.
Yeah.
The feedback Google
the
form.
feedback
Thank
situation.
you. Yeah.
So I mean, we talked about the weight anyway, and it sounded like the women were then set off maybe a minute, maybe maybe it should have been another 5-10 minutes. I mean, another 5-10 minutes on top of an hour and 10 minutes. What harm is it really gonna make, really? Or what
the knock on for all the other races as well.
Exactly. What were the ladies feeling like on the start line? Did they just want to get going anyway?
Well, I mean, at that stage, we'd heard the preview podcast from Mark, and he said that everything was laid out really well on the course. So I wasn't expecting the technical section to come that soon. I thought we would be more spread out by then. Like, it was a mile in, and it was over before halfway. Like, if we'd done the course in reverse, we wouldn't have had this problem. I know we said that it's better to do it before we get wet, but it felt like two separate races, right?
Yeah,
and people complained about that at Nuclear.
It is difficult with Nuts though, because the land that they're allowed to use is actually quite limited.
Yeah.
So I mean, if we did it round the other way, I do think it would have been a different result as well. But
so I guess we didn't start that quick. We didn't mind starting that soon after them, because we thought that there'd be enough running before then for it to be strung out.
But then that technical section is really difficult. It is. You can either get through it quick or slow-ish.
Yeah, it's just kind of luck a bit of it, isn't it?
Yeah.
Like which lane you choose, when, how aggressive you are.
Yeah, and I mean, it would be a lot handy to have a lot more lanes there, but it's just things that we need to build upon, I suppose, as a.
Yeah. And I think, we had that start line was there's like 70 people there. So it was, hopefully that shows that, competitive people want to race there.
Maybe it's a case of
Take the
technical
hate out.
officials, marshals. Maybe I don't know. It's very difficult, especially when you have so many competitors, but maybe not enough marshals. But being able to spot that a female elite or a faster person is coming through, and just saying, "Hey, you've got to let this person through," and maybe some other people being a little bit more polite and allowing people to go through rather than going, "Oh, no, let me step on it. I'm going," sort of thing.
Women aren't traditionally assertive, especially in racing. You're not going to push in front of a man who's already there necessarily.
I was going to say my girlfriend's quite assertive.
Is she behind you telling you that?
You could,
Yeah.
But like there was 4 lanes on the low rig. You could have had 2 for men, 2 for women, and then we just fight against ourselves because that's how we're racing against each other. It's not. Then it's less unfair that somebody had to wait 40 seconds, somebody had to wait 10. I mean, something like that.
It is a big step, but we could have even had, with the time wait that we had, it is possible to do an hour's difference in time.
I know.
Do you know what I mean?
And then you could have separate media coverage. You could have separate spectator attention. Golden Trail Series has decided to go to women and women on separate days, so they have equal or equitable.
Definitely that's something we should strive to sort of aim towards.
Mm-hmm. Still, it was a good race.
I'll move on to some of the feedback because as we always do, we always ask for feedback from the racers in the members of British Obstacle Sports Facebook group. I'll start. Eddie Lambert. Where was it? Realistically, I think Mark Dixon got the balance right by giving the competitive athletes a good challenge in the technical section where you could qualify for the major events legitimately, and the more fun social athletes could also enjoy it with the more standard obstacles. Lovely to see the women's race becoming more competitive. Agreed that a longer time between women and men may solve the queuing. Generally, the course was well marked out. The rest is fine. So I know what I want to say on these ones. Karen Macquarie, I love the course. I love the water crossings. Fell spectacularly on the big blocks twice, making my race with Shy more exciting. Find it hard to get a run going because there is a lot of in and out of the streams and ditches. Love the penalty loop setup. Tamar, I think Mark did a great job with the technical section, making it to the right level of difficulty. The band system worked well, and the bullet lane was an interesting concept that seemed to be successful. And then there's another one I just wanted to talk about. Zach Harper also felt that could have done with a couple of banned loser rigs at the end to add a bit more risk in the final stretch. Once I was through the technical section, I knew the risk of penalties had gone. Always an awesome course, and considering I prefer 3 to 4 lap slog versus a single sprint lap, it still kicked my ass. And John Paul, I'll just finish with John. I thought it was really well laid out and well thought through. Mark Dixon's done a great job. Bullet rig was a good idea. So some really great feedback on how the race routes and the course was set up, the obstacles. Mark in the preview section was always talking about how he'd wanted to lay it out. And as most people had said there, you could tell it was well thought out by a racer and also, I guess, thinking about the Euros and the Worlds coming up and how it's going to really extend our runners and make them a bit more competitive, but also give them a bit more race brain, because we've all talked about race brain, but sometimes we want that muscle memory as well. And it sounds like Mark's done a really good job to have that balance between the technical stuff, the fun stuff, the real obstacle stuff. And as you both said, actually, the real obstacle racers seem to have come through and won these races.
Yeah.
Right. Okay.
I thought you were going to go for something, Becky.
I was, and I forgot it.
All right. I got nothing now. But no, Mark, he's raced. He's won Euros and World Championships before, so he's got a really good indication of what's laid out in the European sort of style races. And Nuts is sort of a European style obstacle race, but with like a UK twist to it. So it really sort of shows that.
Yeah, and it might feel a little bit more like that in Belgium. I don't know. There's like a bit more water and stuff in Belgium, and more variety in obstacles. And we know there's going to be toros there, and
Yeah, exactly. And we all know that Mark really wants the UK to do well, and that's why he puts these sort of obstacles in to get people the training and like the sort of what they need to actually do well at these championship races. He wants the country. He's a very patriotic man, that is Mark Dixon. So he wants the UK to do well.
Oh, we miss him on the race course. The bullet.
No, we don't.
No.
You're right. We don't. A lot
Is
of
that
us
what people say when I'm not there?
He's too fast.
Yeah, I've learned to be maybe a bit more cautious on the low rigs. Like I could have done that, but I didn't. Everyone says that all the time, but I didn't do it. So that's on me.
Yeah. That one band sort of, that 3-band penalty sort of situation makes it really interesting. You've got to go through things quite smooth but fast.
Yeah. It crossed my mind doing the easier lane, like so that I knew that I just have it secured, because I did think, that end bit looked hard, and if I'm in a race situation, but then I was literally had the opportunity to potentially win the race at that stage. Like Josie was just there, Feddy was there, Lou was close behind us. If you got that, you probably would have won the race, and that's what happened. Feddy did win the race because she got that first. So like you had to take that chance, and Mark had said on the start line, this is the good. If you should be giving it a go if you're going to Worlds, and so that was in my head. I was like, yeah, come on, like it's supposed to be a technical race, so Becky, like you should do it. But actually, I probably would have done better if I'd done the easier lane first. Well, it would have saved me a minute and a half, which is more time than I lost the second by.
It's just your execution, just the execution. We all make mistakes on the obstacle rigs.
Yeah,
it's so easily done, isn't it? It's
I kept thinking about it afterwards. I was like, oh.
We've all been there.
Yeah.
We've all been there.
I'll get it out of the way now, not next week.
That's it.
Yeah.
Next
Lesson
week's where it
learned.
counts.
Yeah.
Well, that's it. That's the thing. It's exactly saying what we just said. It's going into these championship races. These are like brushing us up, getting us ready for it.
Yeah, exactly.
In fact, we've just talked about this on the Accountability Corner, which is coming out. So, we talk all about that. Yeah, plug. But it is. It's literally that's why we have a championships, and you can hear that next week on Wednesday.
Yeah, and that's also why we race the race, right? Like, I'm looking across the world at all these people on Instagram, Strava, whatever, and being like, oh, I reckon I could do that, or I wonder how I'd fare in that race. You don't know until you literally do the same race at the same time against the people. You can't compare races in OCR very well. So I'm excited to race the race, and that's what nuts like to do.
Yeah, and that's why, Becky, yourself, you go over to toughest race because it's much more of that European ilk. It's fast. There's a choice. There's a strategy there of the races, and I think I think you and I and Chris, we've said many times, we need to get more people out to Europe to do more European races, because that's the only way they're going to get some real experience. It's great that Nuts has done some rigs and some other races are kind of coming up and doing a few technical rigs, but it's still not quite the same as actually having a pure European style race.
Yeah, I mean, the UK series could attract people from other countries.
Oh, that'd be amazing.
If it gets bigger and potentially more like rewarding, then it might actually draw even better races from abroad or similar races to give us more of a run.
Well, I'm sure it will. I mean, we've all got sort of opponents abroad that we chat to from time to time, and I'm sure that they'd want to come over and race. Didn't Alan say that he had someone came over from the States and tried doing 4 laps of Nuts on his on the podcast? How did he get on?
Oh, you know what? Let me come back to that one. I will try and find out.
Oh, I wonder how their body's feeling, because I'm still bruised, my knees, my elbows.
I was listening to that Alan said. Sorry, Becky.
I was just saying that rope traverse, I knew it was going to hurt, and it still hurt.
I've still got a rope burn in my belly.
Yeah, I had Shy hunting me down on the rope traverse, and I was like, she's tough. Like, she doesn't care about whether this hurts or not. And I'm like, oh,
Did you go underneath or on top this time?
No, I went on top this time.
You went on top, yeah.
Yeah, but it hurt.
Because you wasn't wearing a dress in the evening. That's why you went underneath last time.
Yeah.
Quality.
I did wear a dress in the evening, went out with a cake.
Of course you did.
Yeah.
You did? It looks amazing. Right, so I've asked Ian, and hopefully we'll get an answer before we finish this podcast. But let's go through the overall standings, and we'll very quickly maybe just start to talk about British Championships and overall. So first place in the male, just because I've got this up first, Dan Titcombe, 4 races, 1,965 points, Second place, Mo from Rumble Racing, 1,865 points, so only 100 points behind. Jason Brunnock, fourth place, 1,720 points. Darren Martin in front of Chris Shipley, 1,578 points. Das, 1,547 points, and really not that far behind. Chris Shipley, you're in 8th place at the moment, 1,507 points. So actually, I'm just looking here, 1, 2, 3. There's 9th to 4th, all within 80 points of each other. So that's goddamn close.
Whoa. Whoa, this is going to be exciting, and we're finishing off with the championships. Wow.
Yes. Females, Federica Di Caria, first place, 1,865 points. Second place, JC Lloyd, 1,780 points. Our very own Becky Neal, third place, 1,720 points, so only 60 points behind, but actually only 5 points behind Becky. We've got Karen McQuarrie, 1,715 points. Louise Ferriman, 1,593 points. Tamar Barkley, 1,536 points. Libby Joyce, 1,402 points. I'm going to keep going because they're actually still really close. Cheryl Beach, 1,394 points. Emma Kirkwood, 1,333 points. So again, I would go kind of 5th to 9th place. There's a couple of 100 points in it. That's nothing. And then actually, I'm just going to go down a bit further. You got Shy, Rumble Racing, 3 races, 1,076 points. So she has another good showing. She could shoot up those standings anyway as well. Ooh. So again, even the females all to play for. There's a lot going on. Male Masters. I'll just go first to. So first, welcome to Vets. Das, 1,547 points.
He's looking so old.
James Burton, 1,535 points. So that's a 12-point difference. Ramunas Wickes, 1,424 points. Fourth place, John Redman, 1,385 points. Eddie Lambert, 1,353 points. I'll go to 6th place because you got Greg Stubbs, 1,312 points. So again, 3rd to 6th place, just about 100 points in there. So that's really close. Female Masters, Lou Ferriman, 1,593 points. Tamar Barkley, not that far behind, 1,536 points. And Carney Casillas, only 3 races, 1,020 points. Ruth Battersea, 998 points. Wendy Brothers in 5th place, 945 points. There are a few behind: Laura Haywood, Susan Jarman, Claire Bancroft, Kerry White, but they've only raced 2 points. So they can, again, if they come and run the British Championships, they will start to jump a few places too. So again, all to play for in the female Masters. I'll just finish off with the team because again, so tight at the top. Nuclear Phoenix, first place, 4,485 points. Rumble Racing, 4,250 points. Third place, Fit Body Farm Freestylers, 3,873 points. Just a whisker behind them. OMRM, 3,841 points. And Primal Fitness, 3,752 points. So there's a lot riding on British Championships.
So much. And yeah, I've definitely got some scenarios where this person beats this person or this person has to get that many. We'll talk about that in the next one, I reckon.
We should do like a sweepstake, shouldn't we? A sweepstake like they do at the Grand National or something.
Oh,
sure.
Ooh.
Get Alan on the case.
Get Alan on the case.
Sweepstake. Yeah.
All proceeds go to our pay rise.
Awards.
Yeah, we should do it for like, I don't know, we could do something for like the winners or something.
I'm sure we can work something out. We'll speak to Alan if you sort this out, Alan. So that's the British Championships going to be at the home of UKOCR in Pippingford on the 8th of October. Standard or classic 12K race. Lots of exciting stuff to come on.
Oh, there's so much exciting stuff to come out about that. Can't wait.
Do you want any quick preview at all, Becky? We've got a couple of minutes.
Well, we've seen announced recently about, we've got the Masters Elite category. So if you're not sure what that means, so in Spartan race and Spartan Elite, we just have the Elite race, but we actually have some really good Masters Elite athletes. Louise Ferriman's leading it at the moment, is she? And And so we wouldn't want those people to have to choose to potentially race age group because they could win that, but they could also, they're really in the mix
Oh, yeah.
You know, she came second in nuts. So we want everyone to be able to race head to head. And of course, the points are, you get more points if you've raced elite. So all the elite races will be ranked above all the age group races. So really want that head to head racing. It's going to be a qualifying race for things next year. So you want to be there, you want to be racing elite. And if you're over 40 or over, then you can also have more chance of getting a nice bit of bling for winning or for being the first person in the elite race that's 40 or over.
Decent. That really makes people want to. Well, if I was old like Das and everyone else,
It's good recognition, isn't it?
Yeah.
It's impressive.
really
like
good.
the things that people are doing at, you know, different ages is really impressive. So it
It's-
deserves recognition. Yeah.
Yeah. It is
Similarly,
incredible.
so do the para athletes, and we do have hopefully more and more para athletes joining OCR and Ninja. We have people going out to the World Championships competing in the para category. We're going to have a para team representing the UK. So I think having a national championships for the para division is also really kind of excellent step forward. So excited for all that. And yeah, there'll be more announcements coming out soon. So make sure you're booked in. It's going to be even better than
we will
a race at Pippingwood, you know.
awesome, and
Not
we
just
will
a
of course
Spartan
be
race.
coming back for that preview. So my thanks to Becky Neal. As always, you can find her at the Runner Bean UK. Also to Chris Shipley, you can find him at Obstacle Race Dude. Also, don't forget you can follow his podcast _accountability corner. Thanks of course always to British Obstacle Sports for being a supporter of the UK OCR race. You can follow them at British Obstacle Sports. If you haven't already, you should be following UKOCR. You can follow them across all the social channels at UKOCR. This has been the Nuts Challenge recap race, which has happened and has been the penultimate of the UK OCR series. We will be back for the British OCR Championships, which will be happening on 8th of October. So until the next one, bye.
Bye.
Layers.
Hold me close till I get up. Time is barely on our side. I don't wanna waste what's left. The storms we chase are leading us, and love is all we'll ever trust. Yeah, no, I don't wanna waste what's left. And on we'll go, through the wastelands, through the highways, till my shadow turns to sun rays. And on